I have here something that it says in Psulei HaMikdashim. I'm going to end this on the screen. I'll read this to you here. Open up Psulei HaMikdashim to I think it's the 15th chapter. Okay, this is an amazing idea. As an introduction to something, someone said that there's the declaration, "Don't go to the Temple Mount." It's signed by who? Anybody know? Well, no, not to go to the Temple Mount, the recent one, the 20th century one. Well, they say Rav Kook said it, but Rav Kook explained why he didn't say it. Well, Rav Kook signed it during the mandatory period. He explained his out of pragmatism, and he only meant to exclude the places like where you're really not supposed to go according to halacha, but not the entire Temple Mount. But either way, there was a reason for it at the time. But it didn't mean it's like this is halacha, it's going to stay the halacha forever. And that's well known. Yeshivat Arbeit has all the resources there. My feeling is that great men. Someone said, Rabbi Yashiv or Rabbi Avi Yosef, whoever it was, well-known opponents of going to Rabbis. You know what they did? They never got to go. And my feeling is, I was talking to someone today about this, talking to someone who's newly aliyad, trying to convince him to come with me to the Temple Mount. Told him, if you haven't been there yet, you don't know what you're missing. It informs your Judaism. It transforms you. Just like there's a Jew who never came to the land of Israel, doesn't know what he's missing. He never experienced it. You have to experience that. Yoda Navi, he became a Navi by attending pilgrimage. He came up on Simchas Beis HaShoeva. That transformed him. Where did Yoda Navi live? In Gat Hefer. That's up in the Galilee. So he came, and then it was a transformative experience. That's what it's supposed to do for everybody. My feeling is that every one of these great men who, for whatever reason, was opposed to going up on the temple was sorely lacking something. And the Rambam was alluding to them in this halacha. What does the halacha say? By the way, this halacha is not something that you could really find in the Gemara, they point out. It seems to be that Rambam had a different girsa of the Gemara. Or maybe the Rambam understood this as a derivation of the Gemara, but it's certainly not explicit in what might be the discussion there in Zvachim. Okay, 7. So it's halacha, chapter 15, halacha 14. Tesvav Yudalid. Although Makbili that you have there might number it differently. So good luck trying to find it. It's 15th paragraph. It's toward the end. A burnt offering was slaughtered by whoever's doing the slaughter. Remember, it could be someone who's not the owner of the korban. You found it? It was slaughtered for the sake of someone who was not obligated to bring a korban. That is, I brought a lamb as a burnt offering. I gave it to a kohen there who knows how to shaft. And instead of him slaughtering it on behalf of me, like he's supposed to, he slaughters it on behalf of him. And he has no reason to bring a korban. He's not obligated. He didn't sin or anything like that. He has no outstanding, account with God. Lo Allah la'abelim. So now this sacrifice doesn't count as though I offered it. Okay? Even though, let's say, I had obligated myself in some way, I took a solemn vow to do so. Okay? It doesn't count. Because the guy who did the slaughtering didn't slaughtered it for the sake of someone who's not the owner. Okay? And even though this person on whose behalf it was actually slaughtered is not obligated to bring anything, we don't see any reason that he had to. It is impossible that he doesn't owe some sort of atonement to heaven. No one has a clean ledger. What Rambam is saying is that the sacrifice is not considered disqualified, invalid. What would we do if someone had a burnt offering that was slaughtered in the temple and declared invalid for whatever reason? What would we do with this burnt offering? We take it out of the temple. It would be disposed of. It would be burned outside the temple. Invalid offering. That's what an invalid offering means, right? Well, so they burn it outside. Whereas a valid offering is processed like normal. It's burned on the altar. Except the one who was supposed to bring it, it doesn't count as though he fulfilled his obligation. So I was somehow obligated because of my vow. I brought the lamb. The kohen did it wrong. He did it on his behalf. The korban is still valid. The korban is still valid. It doesn't count as my korban, but it's still valid. Why? Because the fellow on whose behalf it was offered is not perfect. No one is perfect. He has to have some sort of kapara that's still on the books. Make sense? She'ein lecha adam b'Yisrael shelo avar me'olam al mitzvah aseh. There, you don't have a single person in Israel. Listen to this carefully. There's no person within the Jewish people shelo avar me'olam al mitzvah aseh who never violated a positive commandment. How do you violate a positive commandment? People think you can only violate negative commandments. Violating a positive commandment is also referred to in Chazal as bitul aseh. Means you just didn't do, you willingly, when you had the opportunity, you just didn't do a mitzvah that came for which the opportunity presented itself. Okay, so no, building a temple is technically one that you can't have on the books on you or on a person because it's the obligation of the klal, the tzibur. The king has to do it on everybody's behalf. So you're not going to count. It doesn't count as though you didn't build a temple like that. However, if you decided you're not going to wear tefillin one day, so that's bitul aseh. It's not an aveira. You're just not doing it. So too, well, about the ones that you don't even have people against you, and you can't say it's obligatory in that sense. Some people just don't do mitzvos aseh when the opportunity presents itself. And by the way, the Rambam says you don't have anybody who escapes this. You could even have a Rav Yashiv, who basically, that's what Rambam says. Someone did this korban for Rav Yashiv. He didn't ask for it. The korban is valid because Rav Yashiv is not completely clean. Even Rav Yashiv didn't do some mitzvahs when he had the opportunity. Kind of scary, right? So you're going to say, wait a minute, we knew him. He was a big tzaddik his entire life. All he did was study all day long. What mitzvah didn't he do? So if you're looking at a guy like me, I miss a lot of mitzvahs. So that's easy. Okay, I probably have a few chatos that I have to bring. But if you look at a person like him, people say he was perfect. And the Rambam's telling you, based on the Gemara, no, it's not true. Even he didn't do some mitzvahs. So if I'm scratching my head, what mitzvahs did he not do? The answer is the mitzvahs which he made very clearly. He said he didn't do. And that mitzvah was going to the temple. He didn't do it. As a matter of fact, now I'm going to play you something. This is shocking. Someone sent me today. And I'm gonna rebut it now and explain we'll conclude with this. This fellow, this Dion in Brooklyn, who I have to admit, he might be a Lubavitcher, so already that for enough people that's too much. But let's hear what he has to say. Okay, he's talking about Bati Din. He says that in the Beis Din, when you have a Din Torah, much of what he said, 95% of what the litigants have to say is not relevant to the case. 5% is the actual, nucleus of the halachic matter at hand, and 95% is what the litigants need to get everything off their chest and yelling and screaming at each other, whatever it is. But a dayan has to get past all the emotions, basically 95% emotional and 5% meat of the halakha. Listen to this. Hold on.
So again, people get wrapped up with emotional feeling that has absolutely nothing to do with halacha. The halacha is the halacha, and he's going to tell you what halacha is. I'm going to end my shir with a beautiful story that happened with Rabbi Yashiv and Shimon Peres. Shimon Peres one time came to Rabbi Yashiv's sukkah, and he said to Rabbi Yashiv, "Tell me what I could do for you. What could the country do for you?"
Apparently, Shimon Peres was the prime minister at the time, or something else. He was variously prime minister and foreign minister, defense minister. He always had something in the government. At some point, also after you guys know that after Rabin was assassinated, who was the prime minister? Peres. He took over right after that, and eventually became the president. And even before Rabin, Peres had a time as being prime minister also. Okay, so he's been around. He was basically around forever until he died, and he wasn't around. Okay, let's go on.
Sorry, I want a pension for $1 million. He didn't say that. You know what Rabbi Yashiv said? On Erev Pesach, there are people who are going to try to go up on Rabbis and to be makriv Korban Pesach. Please use the police to stop the Chilul Hashem. So Peres asked him, so what's the problem? So he said to Rabbi Yashiv said, a person who goes and angers the Arabs and Harabais is a Ritzeach. Because if he's going to turn around and go kill a Yid, it's not for a Shaila, are you allowed to be makriv Korban Pesach B'zman hazeh or not? It's a Shaila of Ritzicha. So when a person is a person of halacha, he's not thinking about the emotional aspect. He's thinking about the practicality.
Okay. So I thought, aside from the fact that this is highly ironic, because of Attila's point, he's saying that the dayan has to see past, the emotions and look at the practicality of the halacha. Is I think the opinion of many that Rav Yashiv saying, asking Shimon Peres, the secular I don't care about Judaism guy who's totally fine with the Jews going to Rabbis and doing korbanos and had the power to let them, is being told by the rabbi, you have to stop the Jews from doing the korbanos, right? Rav Elyashiv's argument, if Chas v'shalom he did say it, you know what? I'm not going to believe the Motzi Shemra. If Rav Elyashiv was a tzaddik, he didn't say what this guy's saying. This guy's lying. Okay? We're going to pin it entirely on the guy who's talking. Okay, but the point is, it seems that Rav Elyashiv's reaction, if that was his reaction, was entirely emotional. Has nothing to do with the halacha. Ironic. He's giving an example that totally, is the opposite of what he wants to prove. Okay, so what's the problem with this? Let's go through this. Someone told me, first of all, is that Ritzicha? If you do something and it angers an Arab and he wants to kill a Jew because of it, are you? So one, they don't be a reason. Two, that doesn't make any sense. Okay, so we then say Ritzicha. I think this fellow's using the word wrong. It's a sakanas defashos, because doing X, Y, and Z will make the guy angry and kill a Jew, so you can't do that, right? It doesn't follow that way.
Because it's going to anger the people in California.
Yeah, what is this called, by the way, in modern political theory? What is this idea called? Anybody know? No, it's called the rider's veto. So you're supposed to have, regular systems of coming to decisions, right? Regular political processes, legal processes, right? But sometimes the rider just says, I don't care. The rider's veto is violent. Sometimes the rider just riots and he burns down your city, your Minneapolis or whatever it may be, or Seattle. But sometimes the rider actually goes and says, I'm going to kill people, revoke your rights. Okay, that's the what? Yeah. Oh, really? So let's go through this. So the first one is, we should not fear keeping the commandments. Last year before Hanukkah, I pointed out to everybody that the Torah actually says the opposite. The Torah says, when should you fear the Gentiles harming you? For what reason do you have to fear that Gentiles could have the capacity to harm you? If what? If you don't keep the Torah. But in this case, the opposite. Here the Jews want to keep the Torah. So why should they fear what the Gentiles? It's the opposite of what we get from Tanakh. Tanakh says you will get punished if you don't keep the Torah. And those who want to keep the mitzvahs and try, they're rewarded. Shliach mitzvahs, well, we're getting a question here. Okay, someone wants to join the chat. Okay. Next. Number two. What is he going to do with all the great Passovers? Okay. You should know there were other times when Pesach didn't exist, other times in history. Read your Tanakh. Times of Kings Asa, Chizkiyahu, Yoshua. When Yoshua did that first Korban Pesach, when they came to the land of Israel, how many years had gone by since the last time they did Korban Pesach? Well, 38 years. Because they did one the year after the Exodus. They did one on the anniversary of the Exodus. I'm trying to say is that when Joshua had the people do the Korban Pesach, there could have been people say, yeah, but we haven't done it until now. There was a Mishkan. I mean, what is this? We didn't do it. We should just not do it. Maybe we'll anger the Canaanites. We just entered their land 3 days ago. Perhaps doing this Korban Pesach will get the Canaanites to attack us. If we take off a few days to celebrate our holiday, they'll get the jump on us, right? Good argument, right? Is that what they did? And not only that, what did they do before Korban Pesach, it says? What did they have to do? In order to be qualified to eat Korban Pesach, what did they have to do? It says, all the men, because I'll say, except for the Levites, were uncircumcised. The entire generation came to the land of Israel uncircumcised. Why? Because of the danger involved in doing so in the desert. So they all had to undergo bris milah. If I'm not mistaken, I think this is even a tactic that we used against our enemies. If you tell an entire group of fighting men, you all have to undergo circumcision within the next few days, and then celebrate a holiday, take the day off, celebrate your holiday, you're basically making yourselves completely vulnerable to attack. If I were a pragmatist, if I were, all these types of people back then, I would have said, you know what, this Joshua guy is crazy. Perhaps we should first conquer the land of Canaan. If now we got over that whole thing, we're not even going to try. The first generation said, we're not going to land Israel. We're not trying to conquer. Now you have a new generation. They're ready to go in. They're ready to conquer. They're following God's rule. They could have easily said, Yoshua, give us 14 years to conquer and divide the land, and then we'll make ourselves vulnerable, and then we'll be able to have our Passover sacrifice. But instead, what they do? Just like before they left Egypt, they were asked to take the plunge, endanger themselves, risk everything by slaughtering the Egyptian gods and also undergoing circumcision. Remember, leading up to Moses' time, were the Jews in Egypt circumcised? No. Okay. Also, Chazal say Everybody had to get circumcised before leaving Egypt, before able to do that first Korban Pesach. They were making themselves vulnerable, taking a major risk. There were pragmatists in Egypt who were basically saying this whole idea about circumcising ourselves and declaring to the Egyptians that we're heading out and we're going to slaughter their God first is suicide, right? Suicide. But what does God ask of us? Forget your ideas. Stop being Miragal and do what he says, just to know. Okay. So that's the first thing. We have many times in history where the Jewish people did Passovers despite Gentile interference. What does it say at the beginning of the book of Ezra also? When they're trying to build a base of Mikdash, just get the Korbanos going. Who intervened? Samaritans, Haman and his children, a bunch of other people. Their job was to what? Try to stop the building of the base of Mikdash. Did they succeed? What? Well, they did for a while, yes. That's what it says in Achashverosh's reign. It's alluded to in the book of Esther, but it's explicit in the book of Ezra. They stopped the building of the base of Mikdash. What? What? It says, that corresponds to what's described in the book of Ezra. Why is Achashverosh celebrating? Because we stopped it. It was supposed to be 70 years after the destruction of the temple. It was supposed to be a temple, and we made it stop. Baruch Hashem. I mean, Baruch, whatever God they used to worship back then. Baruch Nevu, or Baruch Zoroaster, whatever God he worshipped. Okay? So the book of Ezra is all about how, at a time when the temple and service were weak or non-existent, we had to strive for it despite the Gentile threat. Okay? That's what the book is about. So that's why I say I can't believe Rabbi Yosef would have asked Shimon Peres to do such a thing. You know why? Because if you're talking about a Jew who's aware of the book of Ezra, he would have known that this is what the bad guys want. And the Jews are supposed to strive to bring Korban Pesach despite the opposition. It is my belief, since at least the last few decades, that the main reason we have not had Korban Pesach, and I wrote about this, we hadn't had Korban Pesach last year and all the years before, not because the Gentiles are stopping us, it's because of the regime. An unholy alliance between secular Jews who are just like, yeah, sure, I don't like Judaism, I'd rather, Moshe Dayan types who are, thank God, non-existent nowadays, and hardcore religious fanatics on the right side who are afraid of anything Judaism happening. What's ascribed to Rabbi Yosef, I'm not going to ascribe it to him, but there are many from Jews out there who are just like, stop the Jews from trying to do any mitzvahs. Unholy alliance. Next, what's the third argument against this? Okay, we have the alleged story is also different in Nevi'us. How do you know what his intention is? The bad guy. If one that what you do over here is going to anger him, so suddenly we know their intentions. We know that when a Gentile Nazi wants to kill a Jew, we know his intentions 100%. It's because that Jew angered him by doing a Korban Pesach. Let's say if studying Torah and dressing like a Haredi would upset the guy, would Rabbi Yosef have to stop studying Torah and start dressing like a guy? Well, it upsets the guy. It's Inyan Ritzicha, right? Right? That's a good question. What there for many, I do know that just us living in the land of Israel, or even living here in Kochav Yaakov, or living in Jerusalem, having yeshiva, upsets many bad guys, and it makes them angry enough that they want to kill Jews. It makes an entire country, Persia, okay, Iran is thousands of miles from here and 2 countries over. What do they care about us? Why are they trying to kill us so much? What do we do to them? You think it's because we tried to offer Korban Pesach? It's because Jews live here. What do you think? What do they say? What do their actions indicate? What are they trying to stop? They're trying to stop Korban Pesach from happening once a year, or are they trying to destroy the Jewish people entirely? Okay, good. So his entire idea is wrong. Okay, so yes, if just being a Jewish, just having tzitzis and wearing a black jacket upsets the guy, do you have to stop? Get that yarmulke off your head. Do you have to stop because he's going to be so angry he's going to kill another Jew? Of course not. That's nonsense. No writer's veto. Next, you can replace Korban Pesach with any commandment then. Why does it have to be Korban Pesach? Wearing tzitzis, okay? Anti-Zionists used to fill in Yeshuva Aretz and creating a state. They used to say, like, you could have the statements from, let's say, the Brisker Rav. You can't try to found a state because it results in Gentiles going to kill us. He said this after the Holocaust. After the Holocaust. He escaped the Holocaust. That's how he ended up in Jerusalem. He left Europe to escape the Holocaust. He said, we can't go forward with trying to make a state because war involved. If it means saving one Jewish life, then we shouldn't try to go ahead with having the state. Then how many more are going to die like that? Does that make any sense? No. So you can see even great rabbis have ideas. They're so stuck in this that they say things that are patently I wouldn't say false. That'd be like a lie. They just say untrue. They don't make any logical sense. Okay. The Torah commands us to make warfare, conquer the land of Israel. It's unfortunate that unless we're being led by a Moses or a Joshua, people will fall in battle. The very commandment of Milchemes Mitzvah, conquer the land of Israel and drive out the enemy and destroy Amalek, will result in some casualties. Thank God, much less than them. Disproportionate, thank God. But it'll still result in casualties. Would we ever say that because war results in casualties, there's no longer a mitzvah to have war? Does that make any sense? No. Pikuach nefesh means doche Shabbos. Pikuach nefesh doche kashrus. Pikuach nefesh does not override, for example, what? Avodah Zarah. You have to give your life. And certainly when the Torah says engage in war, that means pikuach nefesh. It says you must engage in pikuach nefesh, sakanas nefashos, so that you can achieve these particular goals. And we saw the writers Vito and Rav Sharkey and the Rabbi Bar-Hayim said that if you take this to its absurd conclusion, all the Goyim have to do is just like those people say, well, you have to rescue you have to do Pidyon Shvuyin. They have a hostage. That's it. We have to surrender, right? Give them everything they want for one hostage. And then they'll attack you even more. They'll take 100 hostages, give them even more. Good, now I'll take 1,000. They basically, once they have one human shield, even their own, they take one of their own, you can't fight with them, right? It's an amazing trump card that they have, right? It's the Joker card. So what they have here is, if you take this to absurd conclusion, that that'll upset the guy, he'll kill a Jew. You can't do anything. We can't even live as a nation anymore. So it's I don't know. I think I'll go back to the starting point. We have to study more Tanakh, definitely, and we have to let the Tanakh inform our opinions. We have to look to Tanakh and the way Chazal understood Tanakh in order to know what we should be doing today. I guess I'm a little bit optimistic. I don't see a leader though. Usually when these redemptions, when even a small kind happens, there's usually someone who steps up. You know any candidates? Oh yeah, it would be great to find someone who has the leadership qualities who can take over. Matisyahu was not a leader. He was not the leader of the Jewish people. He wasn't the military leader. But he just said, okay, no one else here. So Mila Hashem Elai. Well, yeah, so they basically need a coup within the army, I think.
Even if such a person existed and they did build themselves, the powers that be,
enough people would rally around him and not let them. That's basically what's happened in history. Unfortunately, our history, like everybody's history, involves things that are quite unpleasant. But it's the only way history gets going forward. Jefferson said, what is it? The tree of liberty has to be periodically fertilized with the blood of patriots and tyrants. Right? Tyrants have to come down and also patriots have to die. But if not, then the Rishayim win. Leon wrote, why even be Jewish? Yeah. Why even be Jewish? If they tell you can't be Jewish anymore, you just have to give up your entire Judaism or you're gonna get killed. So they see it works. It's like, oh, we stopped them from having Korban Pesach. Tomorrow will be Tzitzis and Mila. By the way, that exists in certain times. Jewish people, what happened every time their tyrants came and said, no more Bris Milah, no more Shabbos, no more studying Torah. What? Yeah, well, it happens all the time. No Shechita. So they say no Rosh Chodesh, no Shabbos, no Torah study. What did Rabbi Akiva? What's Rabbi Akiva's greatest moment? Rabbi Akiva had many great moments. He was a historical figure. Okay, historical in that he lived in history and he changed history as we know it. What was Rabbi Akiva's dream? How do you die al Kiddush Hashem? How do you really achieve Kiddush Hashem? And the answer was he died so he could study Torah. Wait a minute, that's not Yehard Vel Yavor. I thought Yehard Vel Yavor is, the big three. It's Shvichus Davim, Gila Rayos, and Avodah Zarah. Rabbi Akiva was not pressed to do any of those. What did Rabbi Akiva give his life for? What was his mitzvah? Torah study, teaching Torah and studying Torah. For that, Rabbi Akiva was ultimately put to death. Wait a minute. So why do you let himself kill? Isn't that an avera to let oneself be killed for a mitzvah like that? And it was a mitzvah saseh. It wasn't even isser. It wasn't even avera. How did Rabbi Akiva get away with allowing himself to be killed, risking his life in order to teach Torah if he knew they would kill him? Isn't it? That's not Yehard Vel Yavor. What's the answer? You know the answer. Yes, Shasa Shmad. Shas Hashmad, everything they try to get you to do is Yehar V'Yavor. If they try to change your shoelaces, as I'll say, there's no mitzvah shoelaces. There's no real minhag. You know what are Jewish shoelaces even? Okay, Rabbi Akiva realized one thing. Why is that halacha during Shas Hashmad? Everything is the red line. Because in Shas Hashmad, the bad guys make everything the red line. The Korban Pesach, yarmulkes. Rabbi Akiva never heard of a yarmulke, by the way. It doesn't matter. Rabbi Akiva realized, and this halacha we learned from Rabbi Akiva. Whenever they're trying to tell you you can't do this or we're going to kill you, to them it doesn't matter. It's all them trying to get us to do the wrong thing, and then everything is agreed. It's all Judaism. For today's Korban Pesach, tomorrow it's your very life. So it's all Yehar V'Yavor. You have to fight for everything. Kal v'chomer for Talmud Torah. You have to continue this. People have forgotten this. If we have enemies surrounding us right now and trying to kill us for anything, they don't need an excuse. It's not Korban Pesach. It's not the base of Mikdash, even though they want to take over the base of Mikdash. It's everything. It's us. Yeah, our very existence. So that's why. And the answer, I'll say this now. So someone write a letter to Nassim Slifkin. God should give him a refuah shlema from his mental deficiency. You have to kill them. They're trying to kill you, so you have to kill them. It's not being a Ben Gvir or Kahanist or anything like that. It's a struggle for your life. That's all. They're going to take away everything you have. Rabbi Akiva teaches us this. Okay, so let's close with the prayer. Well, we have to bench also. So we'll close with the benching, with the bracha to God, and we'll also a prayer. Should have peace in our time. Learn how to fight back our enemies. Pray to God. Said he should. By the way, it doesn't mean when God sends a Moshiach, it doesn't mean he comes down from a cloud. Everything you read in Sefer Shoftim means there's a proper someone who wakes up and takes control, and the Jewish people know how to follow him because they realize he's the inspired individual. So we should all look toward inspired individuals and give them our support. We have something over here. One thing. Okay, no, he's beyond help. I don't know. I think he is saving. All the Jews can be saved. Shalom v'nitzachon.
Rabbi.
What?
Are there any national mitzvah that can be nidche because of pikuach nefesh?
If you know of one, please tell me because I can't think of one off the top of my head.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, of course not. Okay, good. That's the whole point of being a nation. One for all for one, right? Isn't that the pasuk in there? I think it's in the Pirkei Avos, one for all for one, right? Okay. Be good. Have a good Shabbos. Shalom v'nitzachon.
We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. If you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.